From the east, house of light, may wisdom dawn in us, so we may see all things in clarity. From the north, house of night, may wisdom ripen in us, so we may see all from within. From the west, house of transformation, may wisdom be transformed into right action, so we may do what must be done. From the south, house of the eternal sun, may right action reap the harvest, so we may enjoy the fruits of planetary being. From above, house of heaven, where star people and ancestors gather, may their blessings come to us now. From below, house of earth, may the heartbeat of her crystal core bless us with harmonies to end all war. From the center, galactic source, which is everywhere at once, may everything be known as the light of mutual love. Ayum hunabku eva maya e maho. Ayum hunabku eva maya e maho. Ayum hunabku eva maya e maho.
Welcome, everybody, to Sunday Night Soul Purpose Healing. And I'm so honored tonight to have my brother Vandorn Hinnant with us, whose name just resonates with energy of love and purpose and joy. And so, welcome to Viada's Tiny House Village. So, let's get started. Well, you just got a little tour of my tiny house journey for the last almost 7 years now. Time is going by so fast. I was reflecting on the relationship I had that just ended. And I didn't realize it's been 5 years since my partner and I met. And now he's moved on to a more peaceful, joyful eternity. Lucky you. So now we're here with the living, and I do mean the living because my brother Van Dorn is light and look at those lights over his head too. It just lights and he's a geometry expert in my opinion, sacred geometry. Welcome, Van Dorn. How are you tonight? There you
Oh,
go.
Beata, I'm doing well. Thank you. Happy to be here. And thank you so much for having me back on your beautiful program. Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. How's the weather up there in
Quite,
Tennessee, right?
no,
Oh,
North Carolina,
Carolina.
Durham,
Durham,
North Carolina.
Carolina.
Yes.
How's
Qu-
the
qu-
weather?
Quite mild. It's actually gotten up into the low 70s several days. And it might have even been in the high 60s today. I'm not certain, but it certainly is quite mild. And no freezing weather yet. Yeah. I think we might have had one night that we had a frostbite. That was maybe 2 weeks ago. But right now it's quite mild, and I'm happy for that. Yes, I'm working on a sculpture project where I'm actually outside working, so I'm delighted that the weather is so mild momentarily. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Florida's going through its summer, fall, winter transition. It was in the 80s today. So
Okay.
like
Well,
I dressed long sleeve, long pants and took a hoodie or a sweater. Didn't need it at all. Needed to go back to flip-flops, but
yeah.
we're grateful, excuse me, to be on the planet, right?
Oh yeah. Well, wherever we are, it's where we are. Those of us who know that soul is eternal realize that wherever we land, it's on. If you know what I mean by when I say it's on, I mean that's what's happening. So whatever dimension that we're operating in, whatever timeline we're on, um, where our attention is, that's where the action is, and so that makes life interesting, no matter what day, hour, week, month, uh, year, decade, century. yeah, yeah.
We got some people want to greet you. Francis is and she's in Florida. Says greetings, family. Thank you, Francis, for joining us. You
Green.
know Francis, of
Oh
course.
yes, of course. Yeah. Uh,
Colin James says, "Let's go, Van Dorn."
all right. Thank you, Colin. Thank you.
Colin James.
Yes,
So, I watched a video by Alan Watts. You ever listen to Alan Watts?
I just mentioned Alan Watts today or last night. he wrote a book long ago. Alan Watts is gone, of course, but one of the most important books that he wrote, as far as I'm concerned, is titled "The Book on the Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are." And for the listening audience, if you're not familiar with Alan Watts, that might be a great introduction. This particular book, yeah.
The book on the taboo of knowing who you are.
The book on the taboo against knowing who you are.
Against knowing who you are.
Yes, a short book. It's a very small book. Yes.
So I just love listening to him, because in this phase we're in of being senior citizens, I look at my skin and like, oh, my skin's changing. It's like, and so many, and then the gray, even though I've been dark hair for a long time, the gray is creeping in. And Alan Watts has this beautiful video about what it means to transition from third dimension. Oh, look how beautiful I am. Physical, to being more aware of our eternal selves. Yes. That this body is going to change, and it's our eternal selves that's starting to really take hold here. I love it. Because I don't have to be looking in the mirror and saying, oh, you've changed. Oh, my goodness. It's like, yep, here we go into the next phase of eternity, on our way to eternity.
Well, the thing about this experience is that the only constant is change. So the idea is to embrace that and to welcome the new and different. So it isn't an easy proposition, because there's so much propaganda in regards to maintaining an image, maintaining a status, etc. And so we're collectively not conditioned to honor change for what it is, which is the most permanent and the most constant of all things is change. Yeah. So,
and Vandorn sent me this email that why we're gathering tonight, because Vandorn always sends me good email information and enlightens me. And he sent me an email about relationships and geometry. I'm like, whoa, that sounds like a good show. Let's do it. But as I said, it's the relationship with ourselves that is really most important to me. And in my shows and my health and well-being, soul purpose healing, so many people don't have a good relationship with this. So let's get into you and what you're teaching and sharing about relationships in general, but let's talk about relationships and geometry.
Yes. Well, the reason that I became excited about the possibility of speaking to your audience tonight has to do with the notion that the geometry that I have been studying for so long can be seen as a way of languaging, a way of illustrating the phenomenon of relationship. Because we talk about relationship all of the time, myself in relation to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's no way for us not to be in a conversation about relationship, because everything is relationship, So the geometry helps to model and give us examples of what I would consider to be a healthy relationship with the notion of being in relationship with others. Okay, so if we could show that first diagram.
And forgive me, is that the first one?
That's the first one, right?
Okay, here we go.
And what's important about this diagram for the listening audience is that what you see is a page full of circles that have the exact same relationship with each of their neighbors. And I gave this particular drawing or this particular image a name. Now in the center, you see one circle that's been highlighted. That is for a reason. This is part of a teaching module that I use to illustrate concepts that have to do with relationship and have to do with number relationships and what have you. So imagine that this image that you see goes infinitely north, infinitely south, infinitely east, and infinitely west. That means that it goes forever. And each one of those circles represents an individual. And so at the center of that page is a circle that's highlighted, which can be said to represent one's self. But we don't exist as an island. We don't exist, we don't exist as an island. We exist in relationship to everyone else. And so this diagram wants to illustrate the concept of equal. All of the circles are the same size, and all of the circles have a relationship to their neighboring circle, which is identical. So this is one of the ways that I talk about the notion of equality. And this drawing is called an abacus for learning. Some of us have been taught to say abacus, but you can say abacus or abacus, the way it's pronounced in perhaps its original language. And this abacus or abacus for learning is an instrument that I use to show people how to draw lines between the centers of circles. So we have one image, which is the fourth image that you have. And that image is an image with lines emanating from the center of the central circle. But we can get to that later. The purpose for showing this diagram is to simply say, this represents, for me personally, the notion of equality. And I want to make a disclaimer here. Anything that I say tonight, excuse me, I want it to be understood, excuse me, I want it to be understood that I'm not speaking for anyone but myself, okay? I'm not speaking for anyone else that teaches anything about sacred geometry, or I'm not speaking for anyone else that teaches anything about geometry. I'm only speaking from my vantage point, from what I have come to believe is true in regards to the ancient geometry.
Well, I want to prove this circle right here.
Yes.
Because earlier today, I was in a sacred women's circle. And in this vision, I see us, Vandorn, because there were 20 women tonight or today in this circle at a holistic health wellness center. 20 women, different backgrounds. We all spoke our truth. And I just see the connectedness of, and I didn't know any of these women, but we 20 women, we all shared our truth openly and with no fear, no judgment. And the woman who led it was my guest on Friday, Diane Pilatov. She's a mental health professional.
Yes.
And it was just this vision, right? I thought about you while I was in that circle, because I was like, here we are in a circle, geometry. And then that's all and then the flying thought went away, and here we are.
You know, what's beautiful about what you're telling me is that our experience that we're having as an individual does not belong to us. It belongs to everyone. Okay. Yes. So just because my neighbor or your neighbor doesn't see us right now doesn't mean that they're not receiving information from us that we are sharing between ourselves, because the airways, if I may say, are open. And this invisible telephone line that some people call telepathic communication, it is always happening 24/7. So whether we realize it or not, we're in communication with others. Now, I like to make some playful commentaries momentarily. This is something that I've been saying now for a short period of time. The medium that we call water is everywhere, and science is proving that, you know, it's being shown and demonstrated that we have water in outer space. Pardon me, please. Yeah, I didn't know that I had my ringer on. And that was somebody calling me from California, right? So anyway, what happens is water is a transfer medium for consciousness, and water is everywhere. There is no place that water doesn't exist in space-time. And what I mean by that is that everywhere throughout the universe, water is a constant. And so the way consciousness travels is it travels through this medium called water, even though we do have a non-local phenomenon associated with consciousness. Like how do we say this? just like telepathy, if I may, it isn't like it takes time for a message to be transmitted and received. So, and I guess I can't really speak too much on how I perceive this phenomenon, but I just wanted to say that as an aside. So there is a geometry, a very specific geometry to water, and those who study water understand that the golden ratio is present. Okay, I do not have any images to show us tonight that represent the golden ratio, but it is true that the golden ratio can be depicted on this particular drawing here, because there are certain lines that you can draw on this composition, and one line segment will equal 1, we'll say the square root of 1, and the other line segment will equal 1/2 of the square root of 5 plus 1/2. Now, in the Western world, for those who are listening that know something about sacred geometry, it is the language that is used is 1 to 1.618. And I have studied under someone who teaches from a different, more ancient vantage point. And that ancient vantage point is before we had decimals, before we as human beings had decimals, we were operating with what I would call a pure geometry that has to do with very specific geometric relationships that involve the square roots. But that's another story, because we're not trying to illustrate any of that tonight. But I just want to say that water is a transfer medium of consciousness. And so consciousness is moving through space-time in this medium called water. And water has more states than 4 states. And we've learned this through a group of autistic, non-speaking autistic individuals who call themselves the autists, AUTISTS. So they've actually coined a name for themselves. And if you go look up the telepathy tapes, you'll find more information than you'll know what to do with in regards to this phenomenon of telepathic communication between non-speaking humans. And they're called non-speaking autistic humans. And they've given themselves the name, once again, the AUTISTS, the autists. And it's a fascinating discovery, if I may, or uncovery, or revealing is more like it. And it will be a game changer for humankind, for more people to learn about this group of individuals who have access to information. I don't know how many people are familiar with the term savant. There was a movie made decades ago, Rain Man.
Yeah.
And so Rain Man had a savant, and I think the other guy was his brother. And so in real life, savants have access to information that everyday people do not have access to. And I'm not going to try to make sense of that, except to say to you that they're not distracted with pedestrian concerns. So their awareness can focus on or amplify and magnify what is not generally seen by what we call everyday people who are busy being concerned with where's my water, where's my food, where's my shelter, where's my money, where is my whatever. A lot of autistic individuals are being cared for in a way that they don't have to be concerned with those particular concerns. So their attention can go other places, and they're able to access information that everyday people do not access. I'm not going to say cannot access, but simply generally do not access. Yeah. So there was someplace else I wanted to go in response to your making reference to the fact that you were in the group of women, and it had the word circle in it. This diagram can be used to tell a lot of stories about relationships. So you can draw lines across intersections of circles. So every one of those intersections of circles, you can draw a line between any and all of those intersections. And when you do that, you're actually going to be introducing the notion of square roots, okay? But once again, we didn't come here tonight to talk about square roots. I wanted to talk about the phenomenon of relationships. So can we go to the next diagram?
Well, I wanted to say real quickly, have you ever heard of Sammy Obeid, the comedian?
I'm not certain. How do you spell the last name?
I think it's Obeid. He's a Palestinian, and but he's in America. I love watching him at the end of the night because I get a good laugh. He's a mathematician, okay?
Okay.
You probably would love him because he always brings in math to his skits, his comedy.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
He was talking. There's one he was talking about square roots.
Oh. Wow.
And his teacher was telling him, well, you don't do the square root of a negative number. You can't do that. And this is one of the things I just recently watched. That's why when you're talking about square roots, he's somebody you would want to be entertained by because you learn so much from him. He said he was told for a long time, don't even try and calculate the square root of a negative number. And then he reached a level of education and he found a teacher that said, we're going to find the square root of a negative number. And he made this skit that was so funny. He said, square root of a negative number? How dare you? How dare you? It was like, it ruined his whole life. He was talking about how traumatic it was.
Oh.
His life. They had told him, don't even try to do the square root of a negative number.
So are you telling me that he had been told something that is false?
Yes, that's what he was saying. And he was taught all his young life. And then he reached a level and some teacher said, well, we're going to find the square root of it. And he said, it's an I. Have you ever heard that? It's an I. The square root of a negative number is an I.
No. Oh, when you say I, you mean the letter I or an EYE?
The letter I, which stands for, I don't remember exactly, but that was, it's a letter, it's a mathematical symbol or something.
I understand. Anyway. The challenge is that I am not a mathematician.
Neither am I.
However, my mentor, who is deceased, called me a supra-mathematician.
Okay.
But that only means that I have, in a manner of speaking, gone beyond math. I have done bypass surgery on what we would call traditional mathematics. So my relationship to number is purely a phenomenon of having a way of knowing how to establish in a plane of circles like you see in front of you, the square root of 1, the square root of 2, the square root of 3, the square root of 4, ad infinitum. I know how to establish each one of those square root lengths. So what happens is you're looking at a visual illustration of a square root. Can we go to the last image now?
Yeah, let me just say one more thing about this image tonight, Vandorn. We each did a candle lighting, the 20 of us, and she said if there's anyone here who you want, because we had one extra candle here that you want to just send some love energy to or say a prayer about, we're going to light this last candle that we had, extra candle. It was one of those mechanical candles. And I had a woman who was supposed to come with me tonight, and she had some health challenges. So she's in this outer circle that we were able to send energy out and connect to her from this inner circle.
Yes.
That's what I see in that.
Right. Well, so what happens is, intent, and I write all of the time. And so I write every day, and there's some kind of metaphysical quote that shows up in my awareness, anytime. Let's go to the very last one.
Okay.
The one that has the lines in it.
Okay. Yeah. Is that this one?
That one. Yes.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say for the audience, when we're talking about square roots, what you see here are 3 lines, one going vertical and one going northwest, southeast, one going north. Well, anyway, this is not a quadrilateral composition, so you can't say north, south, east, west. So I'm trying to find words to say that you have 3 axes, okay? And they all converge at the center.
Right.
Each one of those line segments that you see, the distance between one intersection of a circle and another intersection of a circle, those line segments are called the square root of 1. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And then for those that know something about sacred geometry, this composition has, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it has a number of vesica Pisces, and a vesica Pisces is where you have two circles that share a radius. So if you look at the circle in the center, it shares a radius with the 6 circles that orbit around it. Okay.
Okay.
So the circle that's to the north, it shares a radius with the circle in the center. And that area that's shared between the two of them is called a vesica Pisces. Okay. And so what I wanted to tell you is that the length of that vesica Pisces is the square root of 3. But the only way that you can prove this is to draw more lines in the plane. So I don't have any representations because I wasn't planning on talking about square roots or mathematics tonight for that matter. But I just wanted to show this image. And so let's go back to the one that has the same image. Yes, the second image, if you have, okay, the one right behind this one, the one after this one. Okay, that's called the seed of life. And the next image is titled the flower of life. But what I want to say is that the 6 circles that orbit the central circle, they all have the same relationship to their neighbor, just as they have the same relationship to the circle in the center. So you have 7 circles, and all 7 circles share a radius with their neighbor. I don't know if that makes any sense to the viewer, but am I making sense to you by the words that I'm using? The circle that's at the top, okay, the circle, I mean, I'm talking about the purple circle. The purple circle that's at the top
Right.
is joined to the purple circle in the center.
Right.
And those 2 circles share a radius. And a radius means the distance from the center of the circle to the circumference of the circle. So we're talking geometry now. And there are a lot of people that have a geometry phobia or either have residual trauma from having been exposed to geometry from a system that I consider to be immoderately abusive, if I may, and we'll leave that alone. But each one of these 7 circles has the same relationship to any of their neighbors. When I say 7 circles, I'm talking about the 7 purple circles highlighted purple. But all of those circles outside of that cluster have the same relationship. But the purpose for showing this image is that it illustrates 7 circles that are in a very specific relationship to one another, and it is conveniently labeled the seed of life. And I'm not going to get into how it is and why it is labeled the seed of life. That's the name that this particular pattern has been given over an extended period of time. And then the next image, if we can go to the next image.
Well, isn't this though how the embryo develops? It starts as a seed. I've seen video of how the seed has this flash of light when the sperm hits.
Yes.
And then the embryo begins to develop, multiply. The cell, this what I see in this is the cells of an embryo beginning life.
Yes, cell multiplication. Exactly.
Yeah.
These diagrams are sometimes used to talk about cell division, if I may, which also adds to multiplication, if you understand what I mean by that.
There you go, the math again. See?
See, the thing about it is we really can't get around making reference to mathematical concepts because it is part of our language in general.
Right.
But go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The concept of self and other can be modeled by 2 circles that are in a very specific relationship to one another. Now, here's what we want to say. If we put 2 circles on a plane and they don't touch, they have nothing in common, okay? But for those who know the term Venn diagram, as soon as you have those 2 circles touch, when they touch tangentially, means edge to edge or circumference to circumference, that's an establishment of a different type of relationship than the 2 circles being on the plane and not touching. But as soon as those 2 circles overlap, you have an area that's common to circle A and an area that's common to circle B. And this is mathematical language used to talk about concepts that have to do with relationship. So so these Venn diagrams are used to talk about different types of dynamics, but it's all about relationships. So in some cases, the Venn diagrams are used to talk about psychological and emotional issues or matters, if I may use that term. And then in some cases, the Venn diagrams can be used to talk about concepts that have to do with mathematics. But that's when you have to add something called measurement into the equation. And we have been conditioned to think of measurement in terms of a straight line, okay? In some cases, we can say curved lines also, because in mathematics, you have a number phenomenon that's associated with the circumference of a circle, okay? Yeah, but once again, I'm not a mathematician, and I'm not really trying to do a deep math talk here. I would like to keep my conversation about mathematics somewhat superficial for reasons that may be obvious. When I say I'm not a mathematician, I actually mean that. Okay. This at the bottom is coming from Sister Sylvia.
Yeah.
She says the public fool system damages our interest and understanding of geometry. And what is being stated here is that public education system is subversive, and it is misleading and directing attention away from what really matters. So there are places where geometry is used, places on the planet where geometry is actually used to educate humans towards the ends of being able to think clearly and to be able to reason and to be able to experience what we conveniently call logic, clear thinking and critical thinking. So this diagram that we have in front of us is actually a perfect example of an introduction to clear thinking and critical thinking. Okay.
Yes.
And, every line segment that can be drawn on this page, and you can fill the page full of line segments, and each one of those line segments can be given a name, and the names would be the square root of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ad infinitum. And I could talk about that, but I don't want to get off on a tangent because I'm not trying to talk math tonight. I'm trying to give an example of how geometry can be used to talk about the phenomena of relationship. So this diagram called the seed of life, we could talk about it. We could say that the circle in the very center of this cluster of 7 purple circles represents one individual. All of those 6 circles around the circumference would represent 6 more individuals. All of those 6 individuals have something in common. It's the circle in the center, okay? And at the same time, when you walk around the circumference of the circle, you see that each one of those circles on the circumference has a relationship to its neighbor, which is identical. Okay, so all of those 6 circles that walk around the circle in the center have the exact same relationship to their neighbors that are on the circumference of the circle in the center. Is that obvious, the words that I'm using?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm using words to point towards which is evident in the diagram. So may we now switch to the next diagram?
I want to just, because I keep thinking about this picture here.
Okay.
In nature, I always see the sunflower as such a beautiful representation of sacred geometry. And I have the bee there that he just happened to show up. But isn't this one of all the sacred geometry everywhere in nature? Yes.
Well, we could take a tour through. I'll use the word wonderland, and when I say wonderland, I'm talking about nature now. Nature shows us these naturally occurring relationships that have to do with spirals
Yes.
And that particular pattern has a right turning spiral and a left turning spiral in it, the sunflower head.
Yeah.
And I don't want to try to get technical on us, but that is a beautiful and perfect example of sacred geometry. And you can actually see reference to the spiraling in the diagram.
And I never thought about it. Since I've known you, I look at everything now as sacred geometry, because if you ever get a sunflower like this, and we go to this farm every year where they grow them huge, and I just stare in I think at every meditation class or yoga class, there ought to be a representation like this of sacred geometry in the class, so that as we are meditating and closing our eyes and focusing on inward, we also realize that in nature, this is relationship oriented.
Yes.
If I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If we took the sunflower, the head of a sunflower, we could talk for half an hour or more about the meaningfulness of it in relation to number.
Yeah.
In relation to mathematics. So and so it's broken down there. Excuse me. I have no idea what's happening, but I'm having unexpected challenge with my throat.
That's because you're talking a lot. You can take a minute, but I like this. This to me expands the relationship from individual, especially, to more connectedness with more and more people. And isn't that just about consciousness? I mean, isn't this us as humans once we are conscious?
It can be used to talk about the notion of conscious individuals in relationship with one another. Each one of those circles can be said that each one of those circles have the very same quality. And that quality is that their neighbor is as meaningful as they are. They're identical to one another. So that term, I am another yourself, can be applied to two circles in the kind of relationship that we're looking at here. So each one of these circles could be said to be an illustration of the notion, I am another yourself. And I'm hoping that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So no matter which, if you can go to the far left or to the far right, to the far north, or to the far south of this diagram, and all of those circles are identical in relation to their neighbor. They have the very same relationship. So every circle has 6 neighbors. So that means that no matter which direction the one's attention is turned to, it is a way of saying, I am another yourself. At least that's the way I like to talk about it. And once again, we're using geometry to language concepts about relationship. And one of the things that I would like to say is that sacred geometry can be seen as a language where we can use it to model or to talk about relationships between individuals and one another, if I may. So yeah, it's telling a story without speaking a word, if I may say that. Once again, the notion of an image being worth 1,000 words or more. These images do speak volumes. Now, one of the things that I would like to suggest to the audience is that when you see a flower of life pattern, as far as I'm concerned, what is being modeled is this notion of we are equals and I am another yourself. So those two concepts, we are equals and I am another yourself, for me are perfectly illustrated in the flower of life. So what you see here in purple is a diagram that represents the flower of life, and it's on a field of more circles that have the same relationship to one another. So as I said at the beginning, this full sheet of circles ad infinitum represents the notion that we're all equals. And so if we think of ourselves as souls, then we are all souls are equal. We have the same capacity. We have the same capacity for understanding. Now, some will argue with me because and they have good reason to argue with me, and I don't mind that. But I'm not trying to take issue with anybody's concept or notion. There are lots of interesting and curious comments on the notion of what makes a real person, or a real soul. But I try not to get into discussions about that. I'm not really here to argue a point. I'm simply here to illustrate the notion that there is such a thing as having something in common with the person across from you. And that's what I'm attempting to talk about. These other stories are relevant for those who carry them as meaningful. I could say some things, but I would sound like a cynic, so I'm going to refrain from saying anything more other than all of our stories are meaningful, and everybody's story, they're in right place with the stories that they tell themselves and others. Okay, that's what I want to say. Yes. Okay. So
this needs to be taught in elementary school. I'm so glad that was it Sylvia brought up the food system.
Yes.
Because I think that's why we have all this violence and hatred among our youth today. I don't know if you noticed.
Please, let me speak to violence and hatred. Violence and hatred is the byproduct of not knowing who and what you are as an individual.
Right.
You cannot have violence or hatred unless you have an absence of awareness of being an eternal and an immortal soul. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So the systems that have been put in place to distract human beings from knowing who and what they are as immortal souls, that's what fosters the hatred and the violence. It's like we could say in a few words, these are angry souls, and I would suggest that they have every right to be angry because they've been tricked into believing things that are not true, which is the notion of separation. The very notion of separation is for, as far as I'm concerned, a spiritual illusion. So that's something that is talked about in some circles. Everyone on this show knows that wherever you go, you're not likely to have people saying, "I am another yourself." Okay, that is not commonplace, and the reason that it is not commonplace is because the divide and conquer agenda that has been running forever has no use of such notions as "I am another yourself." So that concept is not promoted as being real or viable in terms of a concept. And once again, we all know that the truth is continuously gaslighted for the purpose of what I call, robber barons doing their thing. But I try not to give them too much attention because my contention is that where thought goes, body must follow. So why don't I place my attention on something that I really want to experience, which is a sense of relationship with those who are choosing to be awake in the matrix and choosing to emanate a certain energetic signature that is evolutionary and revolutionary, if that makes any sense to you. So, I like the use of the word revolution with a small r and all of the other letters being in capital letters. So I'm sure everybody sees that picture. Revolution is evolution with a small r in the front of it. So the small r can stay there, but all of the other letters are in capital letters. And so revolution has in it evolution, but the evolution is in all capital letters. And so it's a playful way of talking about this phenomenon of relationship and the phenomenon of consciousness, and how what we think has an effect upon everything. our lives, everyone's life is connected. There's someone that just said hello. And I didn't see what they flashing.
Satnam, greater wisdom. That's my yogi friend, Hari Simran.
Okay.
She's chapping in.
All
Yeah,
right.
I just wanted to acknowledge her. Thank you, Hari Simran, for your acknowledgement of great wisdom. And I can't help but think about our Vietnam veterans, who one of mine just passed, that if they could use this sacred geometry in the VA system,
Yes.
we might see fewer suicides.
We would see fewer suicides. Once again, this diagram, if used properly, can assist people in embracing the concept of being in a special kind of relationship with others. I have to be very careful how I language this, but being in a special kind of relationship with others, where we're not looking at the person across from us as an adversary, but we're looking at the person across from us as another ourself. And so there are a lot of problems, as I see it, with concepts that lots of people are attached to, concepts that have to do with how individuals look at themselves in relationship to others. Okay. And so I dance around a lot of those concepts that have to do with polarity. And I try to direct attention to the question, what do we have in common, right? And how can we look more carefully at what we have in common and answer the question, what can we do with that, right?
Yes.
What can we do with what we have in common?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And the word that comes to me is tribes, because I'm reading a book called Tribes, about the connection. Here we are, the connection that people in the military have when they go to war. They are their tribe. Their tribe is their comrades on the battlefield.
Yes.
And what happens is they lose this connection, even though it's in a war situation. The author writes, this is where they find meaning and valuable relationships is with their fellow soldiers. But when they come back to, especially Western civilization, there's no tribe, there's no connection. That's why I was saying this would be great in the VA system, because when soldiers come back from war, they need to see a tribal or a connection with their environment that they're transferring back into. This is like therapy. I'm seeing this as therapy for our military veterans, because they lose that tribal connection when they are off the battlefield.
Let me tell a story that I told. There's a sister named Enolia Foti who lives in Africa. She's from North America. And she interviewed me last May for a program called, I apologize, I'm not pulling the name up. Anyway, so I'm having a blank there. But anyway, I was interviewed on Enolia Foti's program, and I told this story that I'm about to tell us. Can you go back to the previous image?
Yeah, where is it? Okay, is this it?
That one. Okay. So imagine that there are only 7 circles on the page, those 7 purple circles.
Okay.
I was commissioned to work with a group of disenfranchised children in Winston-Salem several decades ago to do something called, what I was asked to do was to help the group of children who had been conditioned to think of their neighbor as their enemy. Okay, that's how they were brought up. Your neighbor is your enemy. That was the bottom line, basically speaking. Okay, in general. And so,
war. Yeah.
One of the exercises that I took this group of youth through is I had a big pieces of brown wrapping paper, and we had it on the floor, and I would have I had a string with two pencils connected, tied to the string, right? So one pencil would be used to hold the center of the circle, and then the other pencil would be used to draw the circle around the center. Okay, so if you can imagine that first circle in the center, yeah, it takes two people to draw this circle. One person holding the what's called the compass point in the center, and the other person has the pencil on the string, and they draw the circle around the center. And after you do that, then you take the person who drew the circle, they walk away, and the person who was holding the center of the circle is given, excuse me, no, I'm sorry, I'm painting the wrong picture. You have 7 circles, and so each one of those 7 circles is being held, the center of that circle is being held by a different individual. So this diagram, it would take 7 people, or is that 8 people? It would take, I think, 8 people to draw this diagram, okay? 8 people. So after taking this group of youth through this exercise and several other exercises where I had them stand in a big circle, and one person put their right hand on the shoulder of the person to the left of them. Well, okay, so anyway, you take your right hand and you put your right hand on the shoulder of the person that's to the right of you, and you put your left hand on the shoulder to the person to the left of you. We stood in a circle, and that was a closed circuit, okay, in terms of an energy continuum. So, and I had them to just stay there for a number of moments, which actually helped to dissolve the sense of separateness, okay? So they no longer were experiencing being isolated.
Right.
They were experiencing being connected to each other. And that's an energetic connection. That's not just an intellectual connection, okay? So, and they had never had this experience before, because very few people are demonstrating this or using this as a teaching tool. So the short of it is that a number of people were having an unexpected transformative experience by being a part of this exercise. And I had a reason for bringing that to our attention, but the short of it is that that type of dynamic can be taken into equations such as healing centers for individuals that are called veterans, healing systems, healing centers for individuals who are recognized as homeless. The idea of sharing and is illustrated by being a part of this circle drawing phenomenon. And my contention is that it is high magic. It is highly therapeutic, highly transformative, or at least has the potential to be highly therapeutic and highly transformative. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because ideally someone viewing this will say, hey, I can do something with that, you know?
And yes, it's so important to see this geometry as kind of our savior, I might say, because it's sacred. And there's no individual in my mind who's a savior, but the geometry that the creator of the universe has given us is our savior, if we can see it the way you're presenting it. And especially when I'm thinking about tomorrow, I'm going to a memorial for my partner who passed. And I've been thinking about all the lessons, Vandorn, that I learned in this relationship for 5 years. One of them was this man was.
Okay. Viata, I don't know where you went, but we are no longer, we don't see you on the screen. So somehow you disappeared, and I'm the only one.
Here,
okay.
Here we are.
All right.
My Wi-Fi it's held up pretty good, and it's not okay. So I just wanted to say this man was isolated for too long, and then having PTSD in his energy field and all that. There were not enough sacred geometry energies in his life. That's why he suffered so much. And so I want to remind people tomorrow that all of our veterans, especially from combat, need a sacred experience, and especially as you're pointing out tonight, they need a connection to survive. Unless if we don't recognize that these men and women, and I had a woman I met recently who was in the military. She was assaulted several times while she was in there, and now she's really struggling with that energy that she's still carrying. So this solution, what we're saying tonight, is that reminding people sacred geometry is so relevant, so the meaning is so deep to heal what people who are struggling and suffering in our society. And we can look at these sacred pictures and they just disappeared on me. What the when I went away, the pictures did what? Anyway, we can use these, especially Vandorn's art, and then we want to put your website in here tonight.
Okay.
If you use it like I have here, it's on my book, that we can really begin to heal, bring healing energy to our society that's so needed right now. People are so divided and hurt and hating and all that. But this is all about a solution. And Kwame's calling in. This is all about a solution for what our society really needs right now. And that's if it's not veterans, if it's the youth who are confused and fighting and all that, this is a solution right here. The art, the energy, and give me your website real quick.
Okay. Well, one is called Light Weavings, LIGHTWEAVINGS.com. Light Weavings.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes, and the other one is VandornHinnant.com. So
Okay.
Light Weavings talks more about the two-dimensional work.
Okay.
And Vandorn Hinnant talks more about the three-dimensional work.
Vandorn Hinnant at where now?
Just VandornHinnant.com.
Okay.
Oh, yes, those two, Light Weavings, that's LIGHTWEAVINGS.
Did I spell it right? Yeah.
I can't see what you're typing.
Yeah, okay. And then VandornHinnant.com.
Yes.
Okay, please go to his website for solutions to everything in our society this day. Well, Kwame Sunhorse, your mic is open. Go ahead.
Yes, and grand rising and greetings to you, Sister Beata, and Brother Vandorn. You know, I'm grateful to see that somebody is looking at our sacred geometry, and being a Vietnam veteran and, you know, dealing with the PTSD, but also dealing from recovery and drugs. I've had many years of, you know, experiencing, finding the tools to help me in my recovery. And it was one in which was the Ancient Secrets of the Flowers of Life, Duval Melchesnik. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yes.
And he volume 1 and 2. And understanding, you know, the sacred geometry that he's talking about, it basically started back with the first, you know, the 2 circles with the Vesica Pisces. And this is where the flower of life comes from.
Yes.
And in that part of that's us and the 2 cells coming together. And the sacredness of those 2 cells coming together is us coming as developed to what we become as human beings. And this is why Leonardo da Vinci did the man, and the sacredness of what, you know, the Eye of Horus and the mystery schools taught about, you know, using all of this sacred geometry and even the golden means, the vibrational frequencies of the universe and the cosmos, resonating that frequency. And we are that frequency, is how we are formed. We are what's called like the seeds of the universe, and we're planted in the earth, and we grow here, and we grow to know our purpose when we are conceived in the womb. So I'm thankful that, you know, this is a part where we as our people have to begin to understand our sacred science. And so I appreciate all of you for putting forth the energy to help us.
Thank us. Thank us. Go ahead, Vandorn. You have comment.
No. Just thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for finding those tools to use. Yes. Drenvalo is a perfect example of someone who brings us volumes of information that we can use towards the ends of raising our consciousness so we can assist in raising others' consciousness. Yeah.
That's what it's all about. And it starts with us.
Yeah.
And then it'll spread out like those images, like those those lines.
Well, it's like when you drop a drop of water into a lake, or you toss something in a lake. You find out once it hits that water, it creates a ring, and the circle will return all the way back to the place where it was thrown from. And so in that circle of life, we're a continuation in one drop of the waters of life.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kwame, for sharing that. And Vandorn, any final words? We are pretty much keeping it timely here tonight.
No, thanks everyone for showing up and participating in this circle, if I may. And I appreciate the good work that everyone is doing. Even if I don't know who you are, I'm counting on you doing what you can to bring some more light into the human equation so that we can raise mass consciousness and get on with the process of waking up in the dream as a collective. Yes.
Absolutely. My gratitude for all that you are and all that you're doing. Keep sending those emails because they're helping me create more topics for my shows.
All right, cool. I'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah, every time I get email from you, I'm like, it looks like a good topic. And then sometimes I just forget to reply, like, well, but this one caught my attention because
Yes.
The relationship part is so important right now that we focus on healing that in ourselves and in others. So much appreciation and gratitude for all that you're doing. Keep up the good work. Keep up the energy healing work. We need it all, right?
Yes. I want to just say one thing.
Yes.
Anytime you see a mandala, it actually represents a sound. And so I was speaking with someone earlier today about the term yantra. The term yantra is a physical representation of a sacred sound. So you have a yantra above your head in the background, the circle that has the triangle. No, the other one, that one. Yeah, that's a yantra, and the one below it is a yantra. Both of these are yantras, right? And so both of those yantras represent sacred sounds. And the point is that each one of these diagrams has an energetic signature. And so when we see it, it affects us at the subconscious level. And then that gets to filter down to the conscious level. So all of these diagrams that are associated with sacred geometry, it's like listening to healing music, if I may. These diagrams can be thought of as frozen music, if I may. And that frozen music has an effect upon the totality of our being, who and what we are. And so it's like medicine. All right. So I suggest that everybody find some sacred geometry diagrams, put them on your refrigerator, put them under your pillow, put them on your window, on your mirror, in the bathroom, place them around you. You might not recognize the effect that it has upon you, but it will be having a positive effect upon your consciousness.
Well, I have to say this. These sacred figures bring fear to the full system participants. We want to be nice tonight, but I have had people in my life who think this is demonic, voodoo, whatever, strange, because they were in the religious system too long, in my opinion.
That's not a religious system. Forgive me. And I understand. I apologize, but I shouldn't even have said that. But you know where I was getting ready to go.
Yeah.
I won't go there. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but these teachings that are promoted to be about dividing humankind,
right,
and people who are part of these systems don't even recognize that they're participating in the divide and conquer mechanism.
Right.
So,
right.
And so those of us who are awake on this program know that you can't tell somebody that thinks that they know something, anything. So it's like trying to walk through a steel door. So
yeah, and the result is what I'm getting at. Really, the resistance that I saw in this brought suffering and pain, because you pointed out a truth, Vandorn, is what I'm saying, that this is medicine. This is medicine from an Eastern philosophy, Eastern teaching, certainly in Western, because the food system doesn't teach it, but it's medicine if you are flowing. That's the word I'm reading about, flowing. When people suffering in pain, they're not flowing in receiving truth, like you just pointed out. This is medicine, but when you're not flowing in truth, you're going to get stuck and suffer, because the systems are, like you said, divide and conquer. So I'm just saying, we need to recognize the untruths that we have been fed, and open up and flow with the truth that's healing and that brings medicine. That was my whole point. And when hearing you say it was medicine, was beautiful to hear, because so many people don't see it as medicine. But when we're woke, I saw it as not only medicine, but art and energy and vibration and frequency. I saw so much in this, all of this, that so many people are missing. And we want everybody listening tonight to open up and expand your mind and your heart to see the medicine in the sacred geometry, which is all part of the earth and nature.
If a person can breathe naturally, fear will disappear. Okay?
Yes.
If a person can breathe naturally, fear will disappear. And fear is the determinant in so many people's experience, because they have been traumatized to the point where they don't breathe properly, and you can't get the total system to work the way it was designed to work. So you have something that is happening by default, and it's like self-poisoning. Not breathing properly is like poisoning oneself, if I may. But we'll stop there, guys. We could go on and on with this question of how do we become whole again, or how do we remember our wholeness. It's not a question about becoming whole again. It's how do we remember our wholeness. And the word remember wants to be understood. It means put back together. Okay? Remember, put back together. So how do we remember our wholeness? Learn how to breathe. So much beauty comes through breathing properly or correctly or naturally. And so, okay, well, I guess we'll stop.
So let us end that with 3 good breaths to take in the truth that we've heard tonight, to take in the wisdom and the love energy. So I suggest we all breathe in, hold it, and let go of anything that's not serving you, that's not feeding you, that's not nourishing you. Breathe in the love that's been presented tonight, the truth that's been presented tonight. Breathe in, hold it, hold that truth, hold that wisdom, and let it go. And then finally, breathe in your truth, that, as we just mentioned, you're remembering the truth of the universe, the truth of every human being, and letting go of all the lies and deception. And this is our wish and prayer for all of you, that this reality will really come forth this week for you, of what is true and what is loving and what is kind and what is helpful and healing to you. So we appreciate every one of you. I think we got all the comments. Yes. Let me see, make sure I got that. Somebody. Sacred geometry. Okay, there was another. Okay, sacred geometry is truly causes physical healing, and we have seen proof of this. Absolutely. That's our final word. The proof is here. And I hope you'll share this with your friends and family, And don't forget to like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up because this information is so valuable to heal our, not just our communities, but the planet and the earth. The war, we don't even mention wars, how with so much deception, and we need healing, 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 and more healing. So everybody, please share, subscribe, and like, and we'll see you on the next one. So keep those emails coming, and I'll alert you when we need to come back again and share all this good stuff that you keep bringing us to Vandorn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
So we say Satnam,
Satnam.
Namaste,
Yes.
and Ashe, Ashe, O, and Aho, Aho, Mama AZ, I don't know where we are. Aho, Aho, and
Aho.
Shalom. We'll see you later.
Shalom. Shalom. Thank you. All right. Pleasant.